Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by Dakota Lasky, Duminal Crossing. How you guys doing today? We got snow up here in Canada. Go figure.
Really?
Yeah, man.
How much?
Well, this morning it kind of started like, when it starts as rain and then slowly turns into snow.
Yeah.
So now I bet you it's like an inch now. Maybe more.
I'm ready.
Well, we don't have snow down here in California. However, we do have rain, and anyone that lives in California knows that is quite a rarity in and of itself. So I'm definitely been enjoying that. Hopefully, it continues on because we could sure use some of it right now.
Yeah.
It has been, I don't know about y'all, but if any listeners out there in the New York, New Jersey area, I'm sure you know this. It's been raining like every Friday and Saturday for the past like 5 or 6 weeks now. Like on schedule here in the Jersey area and New York City area, which has been just astounding because it's like on the clock, like every Friday, every Saturday, huge thunderstorm. It was flooding some of these weekends, so I'm pretty sure that happened this past weekend again. If it didn't, it definitely did the past few weeks. But yeah, I'm ready for the snow as someone who lives in an apartment building and doesn't have to shovel any of it. I am looking forward to that weather. But of course, I love fall, and we're in peak autumn right now, and I'm enjoying it.
I was just gonna say, and we have a couple of good games to to celebrate the fall season with. We had Spider-Man 2 and the Super Mario Brothers Wonder game both releasing back to back on October 20th. I really want to play Spider-Man 2, but I do not have a PS5, so I'm waiting for that sweet PC release. But I have been playing Mario Wonder, and it is fantastic. Don't quite think it's the best 2D Mario ever. I still think that goes to Super Mario World, but it's definitely the best game since Mario World. I will say that.
Yeah, so I'm only like a world or so into Mario Wonder. I think it's really fun. It hasn't blown me away yet, though. But like I said, I'm pretty early in. I think that the wonder effects are like a fun.
Is
gimmick.
it wonderful?
It's good. It's good. I was trying to think of like at the end of the level, you either hit the top of the check mark or whatever, or like the little what's the word I'm looking for? Doom the pole,
the flagpole.
Yeah. So if you get it in like the upper area, it's like super. So it's really good so far. But it's also kind of weird that they haven't been able to make a better game than the game that they released like 30 years ago also, which I feel like is kind of weird, but nevertheless,
I mean that goes for a lot of franchises, I feel like.
Yeah, you know what? You're right.
Super Metroid is yours and a lot of people's favorite Metroid games of all time, but I don't think that diminishes the quality of the other games that we've gotten since then.
I mean, from my perspective, they just re-released the best one in the series like a year ago, so that was great. So Metroid's doing great in that respect.
Yeah, as I was saying that too, I was like, well, you know what? I love Metroid Prime and Super Metroid, so maybe that's
yeah. Speaking of new games, by the way, I finally, as I mentioned in the Discord, picked up Sea of Stars.
Yes.
Which I mentioned on the show that I really enjoyed the demo a few weeks ago, and I was like, you know what, like, because I've been working on a few games. I'm still working on Baldur's Gate 3. It's been a great year for games, by the way. Baldur's Gate 3, fantastic. I'm still working on Starfield, working on Armored Core. I just started playing Overcooked 2 again, which was fun. Obviously playing Destiny, and Halo Infinite's in a great spot, better than it's been, which is pretty cool. But Sea of Stars came out, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna drop it down. I'm gonna pick it up, and I actually just played the first hour or so of it before the show. I got to the Forbidden Cave after like the whole tutorial area and beat that boss, which is like a very clear nod to Chrono Trigger, I feel like. Yeah. Especially the music, and then you play the boss.
There's a lot of nods to Chrono Trigger.
Oh, that's like a straight up homage right there. Like that's just a straight up reference almost, I feel like, which was great. But yeah, it's very Chrono Trigger-esque, which I love, and kind of has that like Secret of Mana feel to it too. I loving the game so far. It's only an hour and it's fun. It's a cool game. It looks really cool. The music's great. Really like that first section. And I also picked up this game Cavern of Dreams, which is like an N64 style like retro collectathon platformer type game. So I mean, Donkey Kong 64 is one of my favorite games of all time, and I saw it just recently came out. I was like, I'm gonna pick it up. It's like one of those games, kind of like Super Kiwi, like MacBat 64 or like Tori, if you ever played any of those games. So all those fun kind of like retro collectathon style games. So I'm gonna try those out. And yeah, it's been a great time for some new releases. I haven't played the new Super Mario game, but or Spider-Man, but I'll try those out eventually.
I will say what I love about Mario Wonder is, weirdly enough, its multiplayer aspects. I think this is like one of the most creative Nintendo multiplayer experiences in quite some time. It's very community driven, and a lot of these levels, like, they play so well, with the way like you interact with, like, the other players and whatnot, and like how players can like you can have fun with each other, or like players can like drop standees to help revive you, or they can like try to motion you over to like a secret hidden area or something like that. And there's just a lot of really fun, like, spur of the moment stuff like that that feels very un-Nintendo like, but it feels like right at home for this game. And I think that's like where a lot of that.
Let's play some levels. Let's play some levels.
We should.
We should.
We should, for real.
I don't know how well we work together.
I'm gonna have to get it then.
Yeah, no, it is really fun, and I think I'm looking forward to Spider-Man 2 as well. I really liked the first Spider-Man, but I was reflecting. I promise we're going to talk about Metroid eventually on this Metroid podcast, but like I was kind of reflecting because I used to be such a huge Spider-Man fan, and I liked the first Spider-Man game. But I don't know, as I kind of got older, I was just like I gravitated more towards like Batman and Green Lantern, and I have always loved X-Men. So like I don't know, Spider-Man is it wasn't until I saw like Into the Spider-Verse where I was just like, okay, like I think I'm back into Spider-Man. So I haven't played the Miles Morales game yet either, which I would like to. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about the new Spider-Man game. Although I think Kraven is like the main bad guy, right? Do I have that correct?
He might be one of the main bad guys. I know he's, well, it's not really spoilers. It's in the marketing. Kraven's in there, Venom's in there, obviously.
I don't know.
I
never
think
was a big fan
might be
of
like
Kraven.
the two main ones.
Like something
Who's
about
Kraven?
him.
Who's Kraven?
I love
Kraven the Hunter. He's
Who's Kraven?
He's like the bad guy from. Actually, that's a bad reference. I was gonna say he's like the bad guy from Jumanji, but he's like a hunter.
He's inspired by The Most Dangerous Game, like the hunter that like hunts human. That's literally like Kraven, and he's trying to hunt Spider-Man.
He's just some guy.
Yeah, he's just he's kind of okay, but like
some bounty hunter guy.
There's so many cool Spider-Man villains. And to be fair, they burned a lot of them in the first game, but
I was gonna say I love Kraven. That new movie looks terrible though. It
does.
This isn't Lobos, right?
Who?
No, it's Kraven.
Is that a character? Wasn't that a character? Lobos?
I don't even know who that is.
I think that's a DC character.
Are you thinking of Lobo? Like Lobo's a DC character.
Yeah, Lobo. I don't know Lobos.
He's a DC character. He's kind of like, God, he's closer to Deadpool than he is to Kraven, to be honest. But nevertheless, let's move on here.
What I know.
Yeah. All right. So we are bringing back a proud segment in this podcast. Called Samus's Percentages, and we all know how this works. You guys, the audience, know how this works. We're going to read a statement, and we are going to assign it a percentage. 100% being that statement is completely true. 0% being that the statement has no earthly chance of ever coming to fruition, ever. And somewhere in between is probably where we're going to end up. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to read these statements. We're going to give our Samus's percentages to the following, and we're going to talk a little bit of this, a little bit of that for the Metroid series for the next hour or so. So without further ado, guys, let's rock and roll. I've also sprinkled a little bit of Switch 2 ones in here, and I have one that I'm quite excited about, even though I know what the answer is going to be. So yeah. Okay. Well, who wants to get us started?
You got it. Let's hear one of yours. You
just hyped us up. Let's see what you got.
So I'm gonna lead us off with a twofer here. So these are two separate ones, and they're linked together. There's the same premise. So
already overcomplicating it.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'll do them one at a time. How about this? All right.
Okay.
Let me restart. All digital remasters for Nintendo consoles going forward, like a Metroid Prime remastered, will cost the lower price of $49.99 or whatever price that would end up being on the Switch 2 comparable going forward. So essentially, if it is a remaster, any series, any whatever, a remaster from Nintendo, like Metroid Prime Remastered, it's going to cost less than a new retail price game.
Oh, okay. You're just gonna give us the first half. Okay.
Let's just do the first one. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna go a 40 on that
Okay.
because I feel like Metroid Prime Remastered was almost somewhat of a special case scenario, or not necessarily a special case scenario, but more so because it's more of a niche series. We've seen that with Pikmin, and then we've seen that with Mario All Stars. But also those latter two examples are like almost straight ports, but with just some basic upscaling and minor
Yeah, I don't
quality
think
of life
either of those
improvements.
examples quite fit.
But at the same time, we saw like, you know, Skyward Sword HD, for example, which was 60. I think the key thing that will determine this is Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, because I feel like that's more in line of like Skyward Sword HD in terms of like the level of work that's being done there. And so I think that price point will kind of determine like, you know, kind of the trend that they go in the Switch 2 future. And I'm still thinking Luigi's Mansion 2, I could absolutely see them charging 64, because I mean, Luigi's Mansion 3 sold gangbusters. Luigi, you know, even aside from the Super Mario series, you know, even his solo series is like well above, you know, what a Metroid or a Pikmin is. And so I feel like they could absolutely get away with doing it, and they will, and we will buy it, myself included.
Yeah, I'm going to go even lower than you, I think. I think I'm going to go... let's go 27%. I think Metroid Prime Remastered was the exception rather than the rule for a lot of the same reasons that you detailed. And I don't know, like, I don't know how many other games kind of fit that mold either. Like, even Luigi's Mansion 2, I don't know quite fits that, because I don't know how much, like, extensive work that they did on that. Like, obviously they did some work to make it appear on Switch and have it look good on Switch, but I don't know if it's the same effort or work. I mean, I have no idea, but it doesn't seem like the same effort or work that went into Metroid Prime Remastered, at least to my layman eyes. So yeah, it's kind of, it's tough, because like you would see comparable remasters. You know what? Even now, I was going to say it. I was going to shout out the Resident Evil remakes, but like those are new engines too. So it feels like Metroid Prime Remastered really is kind of an exception almost unto itself. So I'm going to go 27%.
I mean, I think it's 0%. I think it's going to entirely be based on the IP. Like, really, ultimately, like Metroid Prime Remastered is not Mario or Zelda or Animal Crossing, so they're not going to charge full price for a remaster, no matter how good it is. Whereas Super Mario RPG is essentially a remaster. It's not a remake. It's not a whole new game. It's a remaster of an old game. But it's a Mario game, so they're going to charge $60 for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really what it comes down to. So, like, I don't think it's going to be, like, based on whether or not they put a certain level of quality into the game, or, like, effort or resources. It's going to come down to, is it a Mario, Zelda, Animal Crossing, or Splatoon, or Pokemon game? That's going to be $60. Is it anything else? It's most likely going to be like $40 or $50, because they don't think they're going to be able to sell as many full price games, because it's not as much of a popular IP. So they're going to charge less for it, because they think they're going to get more people, which is probably true.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really what it's going to be based on. So if the statement is, what the question was like, will all remasters only be full? No, I think anything that's a big, more popular IP will be full price, and anything that's a less popular will be not as full price, and that's going to go for all of those remasters and remakes. So yeah, I don't think there's any chance that they're gonna make. I don't think there's any chance they're gonna make Mario remasters to the level of a Super Mario RPG, for example, a $40 game. They're gonna charge $60, which is what they're doing.
Okay.
I also wanted to continue off that, because it just occurred to me, you know, the Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake, that's $50, which personally I still think is a little overpriced, but it's not $60, and so we're already seeing some variance there.
That's true. I mean, to me, I guess that's fair, because I guess when I was thinking, I'm like, when I think of a full price game, I think like $50 to $70.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because full price games used to be $50, but I guess portable games were like $30, $35. I don't know. I guess that's fair.
It's so weird hearing like you guys talk about this in like American prices, because like those, you know, just those are not my prices.
Yeah, so then maybe I guess I'm wrong there. Like they wouldn't necessarily do a non-full price Mario remake, because you're right, the Mario vs. DK game is so.
That's a great point, Doom.
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's also a much smaller, like,
Yeah.
IP Mario vs. DK than like
So then maybe
Super
that
Mario RPG.
So then maybe like I guess like if like Super Mario RPG it's a smaller IP, but it's a Mario. I don't know.
Like
Well,
the question is like they're like what is like because Mario RPG like did they build a new engine for it? I mean I assume they did.
Well,
right?
it looks like they rebuilt the game from the ground up. I mean,
Right.
I mean, to be fair, how
to
crazy
me it looks
of a
like
new engine do they need for Mario versus Donkey Kong?
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
exactly.
It could be the same engine for all we know.
Well, okay. Before we get lost in the weeds here, I this is a great answer, and I don't want to move off this topic yet, but I want to have my follow up percentages here,
Okay.
and we'll go in reverse order. So Dak, me, Doom. So let's go. Metroid Prime 4, as with Tears of the Kingdom, costs $89 or $79 for you guys. Or whatever the Switch
Jesus.
2 equivalent is on like just a marginally more basically is what I'm
Yeah.
saying than the regular
So
price
it'll
game.
be whatever the max full price title is. what
Right.
you're-
So
yeah.
whatever like the same idea as Tears of the Kingdom. It was $10 more than all the other games.
Yeah. Well, I mean, going off the first one, yeah. Like I said, I still don't think that all remasters are going to be lower priced. Like some of them might be, but I think there will be higher priced ones like Super Mario RPG. But on this this statement, yeah, 100%. Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a full priced.
Okay. Okay.
The highest echelon, I think, of price that they're going to charge. I think I'm going to put that 100%. Yeah, it's going to be a quadruple A title. I think it's going to be like one of those like killer app, like you're buying the Switch 2 to experience Prime 4, one of those deals. So I think they're going to charge full price for that bad boy.
I've
And
got kind
Andy
of a
gives me crap for
wishy-washy
doing
here.
zeros and hundreds.
Yeah, I hate zeros and hundreds. Terrible.
Oh, I mean, I don't think I've ever given a 0 or 100, but you gave pretty like definitive. I don't know. Those felt very like easy 0-100s to me. Like,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
I've got like an on the fence answer here, which I know is kind of lame, but I'm gonna go 53%. And the only reason it's not lower, I don't think that Metroid Prime 4 would have regularly cost more than your average game, but I do wonder if Nintendo potentially sells it at just a little bit of a higher cost to try and recoup some of those developmental costs. I do wonder about that. And I do wonder, it kind of depends too on if this game comes out for the Switch or not. Like if it's really, really, really rocking and taking advantage of some of the Switch 2's rumored features, I wonder if that makes it a little bit more. But then I would also wonder if like just basically all Switch 2 games are going to be that price. So I kind of a wishy-washy answer, 53%. I don't know. I thought that was an interesting question though.
I'm going to go 99.9999999% chance.
See, I think that's more of a cop out than 100% because you're pretty much saying 100% without saying it. I at least had the balls to put my foot down and say
that
100%.
Metroid Prime 4 will be $1. No, I'm
I
kidding.
100%
It's going to be
completed
$70.
So you think
But no.
like your average Switch 2 game costs, let's just say $80. You think that Metroid Prime 4 is going to release for $90 when every other Switch game costs $80. So I just want to be clear that we're all talking about the same thing.
No. I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be like a premium Switch 2 title. So like 70 US, 90
Right.
Canadian
It's
dollars.
going to cost
whatever
like
that
$10 more than all the rest of the games. Basically, is the
is. Yes,
Yeah.
that is what I think.
Okay.
But I
And
don't think it'll be the
there's-
only one that'll cost that extra premium, though. I think because Andy is that.
Yeah,
what
well,
you're
yeah, I
saying?
think
Yeah. Okay.
I think all of the Switch 2 games, or at least all of like the big hitters, are going to have that premium price point that we see nowadays.
Okay, yeah.
And I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a part of it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
think the reason why, I actually don't think recouping costs is going to be a big part of it. I think no matter what happens, Prime 4 is going to lose money, but that Prime 4 is part of a much larger investment for the Metroid series as a whole to recoup the cost of that game. I'm basing that off absolutely no data or evidence. That's just kind of an idea that I have.
Mhm.
But I think the big part of that $70 price point is because I think we're all in agreement that, Metroid Prime 4 is not getting revealed until we see the Switch 2. And to me, that tells me that they want to market Prime 4 as a Switch 2 title primarily.
Of course.
No pun intended. And as a result, they want that title to feel like a must-have entry. Even if to the general consumer, it's not the must-have entry. It might be the 3D Mario more than likely, or a Mario Kart. But they want to market this on that same level. Like, no, this is a big game. This is a system seller. This is something that's going to show off the Switch 2 and, the power of this new console. This is a must-have entry. And if you lower that price to $60, it almost, to the consumer, is going to deflate that value to them. Like, this is not as big of a deal. Like, it's a smaller game. And no, you want to put your front foot forward. Like, no, this is worth $70. This is a big deal, and you need to buy it.
I can see that too. I just, on the other side, I wonder if, Zelda was the first and so far only game that we've seen do that. At least for the Switch's life cycle. Everything else has been, in Canada, $79.99, in America, $60. Obviously, Metroid does not have the same kind of name value or sway, let's just call it, as Zelda. So I could also see that dissuading from making that decision, especially comparatively speaking. Like, Metroid Prime 4 is obviously going to be a much smaller game than like an open world Zelda game or an open world any game, no matter how big Metroid Prime 4 is. And maybe unless it's an open world game, who knows? But those are kind of my counterpoints. Well, I'm way lower.
I mean, you just made a you just made a Twitter post, one that I agreed with actually, about the whole $60 Dread
let's
controversy
not bring that
versus
up.
Mario
that turned
Wonder.
negative really fast, and that wasn't my intention. Yeah. All right.
I will say I agree with Doom though, is that the best way for them to make it feel like a big deal is to price it at that premium $70 price point. As well. And the second that you don't do it, you immediately put it at a level below any other game that is at that price point. So even people who don't know what Metroid is, if you look at, like, let's say for example Metroid Prime 4 is out right now and it costs $70 like Tears of the Kingdom. If someone were to look that up and find that the only two games are that premium price, and they see whatever Metroid Prime 4 is, which they have no idea what it is, and then they see a game they do recognize, Tears of the Kingdom, they're like, oh, well, if that's $70 and that was Zelda and that was great, and this is $70 and they're putting, like, this must be great too, I should check it out. So, that's
it's value perception. Like, it's
like, I wouldn't even say that's almost gonna happen. I'd say that would definitely happen. So I'm imagining that whatever the premium price is for those major releases, Prime 4 is gonna have that. And if it's $70, I'm with it. It's $70, and I'm gonna end up buying it. So
I'm gonna buy it a few times. I'm sure
they're gonna get my money. So why not charge me extra $10? They got me.
Okay, that's perfect. All right, who has a percentage that wants to?
I got
next?
one.
All right.
I got one. I got a fun one. Here we go. I'm just gonna. I was thinking about going out of order, but I'm just gonna do it in the order that I wrote them in, because screw it. Here we go. We will get another Metroid spin-off game, so not a main 2D game or a Prime game or a remake or remaster of any of those games within the next 5 years. What do you think?
Can you repeat the question again?
The question is, will we get another Metroid spin-off game within the next 5 years? So not a main 2D game, not a Prime game, and not a remake or remaster of a main Prime or 2D game. Obviously,
in the
a Prime
next
spin-off.
5 years.
5 years.
I'm gonna go 90%. I think we will.
Okay.
Whether I feel comfortable and confident in that, because like Metroid, I think, is on a little bit of the upswing. Dread did really well. We're assuming Prime 4 is going to do really well. I think it's not unfathomable 5 years from now. Like, Prime 5 is like, if Prime 4 does as well as we think, and that they're kind of building a new trilogy or whatever, Prime 5 could be out. And I think, like, with the amount of, like, good, talented indie developers out there right now, like, I think that you could easily go to somebody and say, like, hey, like, let's try this Federation Force thing again, but good. Or like, hey, let's do Metroid 99, or let's do, like, something a little bit different. So I think that there's so many game devs, and Nintendo has certainly in more recent years kind of opened up the vault, so to speak, to let other people kind of come in and make those titles, including with Metroid, and with like the main games as well. So I'm high on this. I'm gonna go 90%.
Okay.
I'll go 75 on mine for a lot of the same reasons, but I was actually thinking specifically about, because I feel like the biggest problem obviously Metroid's a niche series, so it's spin-offs are kind of a harder domain to go into. But also, it's just the available developers that are on staff at Nintendo. A lot of them have more important projects to get to, or they're just not really interested in doing a Metroid game, and so these creators have to like specifically go out of their way to find teams like Sakamoto did with Mercury Steam, for example. I think that's starting to change now. One thing that stuck out to me during the last Direct was the comeback of NST, Nintendo Software Technologies, who did Metroid Prime Hunters. And I don't necessarily think that they would do like another Metroid game specifically, but like they developed F-Zero 99, which most people seem to really like. They're doing the Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake remaster, which, I mean, as overpriced as it is, it looks really fun. It looks very faithful to that original game that I adore, so that looks pretty good. And this is a team that hasn't really done a lot of stuff like since the very end of the Wii U era, other than like some minor support stuff. And so I think with the opening of them, potentially some, other internal studios that we really haven't seen with Nintendo, that frees up more spots for Metroid, and you combine that with potentially Prime 4 really putting this series on a whole new pedestal. Yeah, I think we might see some spin-offs in the future.
Okay, I was not expecting as positive responses from the both of you as I got, but I agree. I also said a 75, pretty much for the same reasons. I actually don't think we would get it from an in-house studio though. I think it would be like a Cadence of Hyrule kind of situation where we get it licensed out to a studio who has a cool idea that comes to Nintendo, or like, yeah, ship it, and that's what we get. Like, I definitely think in the next 5 years we'll see either like. We're going to get Prime 4, and yeah, I think we might even at that point be at Prime 5 or Metroid 6, and there might be a game that comes out in the gap between that, or right after the two main games from now. I could definitely see that, a smaller game. I think at this point, like, there's so many... I think, like, the game industry has grown. There are so many different kinds of studios at so many different kinds of levels who have different kinds of ideas and creative visions that can apply an IP to a different genre and still kind of maintain the core essence of it, that I wouldn't be worried if someone comes to me like, hey, we want to do a Metroid rhythm action game or an RPG or a Metroid 99 somehow or something like that. Like, I'm open to it. And even if it doesn't kind of retain the core essence of Metroid, like, okay, then we get a new kind of Metroid game. And that's like one of the beauties of Metroid is the fact that the main series itself has two different styles. Like, who knows like how Metroid could evolve. So yeah, I think it could happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's an out-of-house kind of deal, though, and that'd be cool.
Give me the Metroid welding game right now.
Yeah, oh, I want Metroid, the Metroid Sims.
So a Metroid bowling game. How
I want to be able to breed my own Metroids. When am I getting to breed my own Metroids?
That would actually be cool. Like that Jurassic Park game that they had, where you could like build the park. That would actually be sweet.
That would be dope. That's the.
And then you just let the Metroids loose on all the attendees. Like, oh, that would be sick.
Okay, gang, Samus is here. Lower the cages. All right, Doom, what do you got?
Metroid Prime 4 is going to feature the return of the Command Visor from Metroid Prime 3 and far more expanded. I'll have to repeat the question for Zach when he gets back.
Okay, I'm going to go for this one.
I heard it.
He's got the wireless headset. My bad.
Yeah.
Our man is living in the future over there.
You don't have wireless headsets?
Well, I mean,
you should get a wireless headset. It really is game changing. It's very. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it frees you up. It really does.
You know what's weird is like every time I try and connect my Bluetooth headphones to my computer, I just get static. I don't know why.
See, these have like a dongle or whatever that you plug into the computer, and then it's a receiver, and so you don't have to
like the old Wavebird.
Yeah, it's essentially a Wavebird. Yeah, exactly.
I have a wired headset that still requires a battery to charge the amplifiers inside. So,
I mean, I plugged this in, but anyway, go ahead.
All right. The statement was the Command Visor will return and be much expanded. Correct?
Yes. In Prime 4.
I'm going to go 11%. 11%. But that's not to say that I don't think that like you're going to be able to control your ship and that you're not, I have a hard time seeing them bringing the literal Command Visor back. The only way I could see the Command Visor coming back is if, and I hope they do this, but they break the rule of 4. Like every game you only had 4 visors, you only had 4 beams. I think they can and they should break that rule. And if you can have like let's say 8 visors, then yeah, I think the command visor is going to come back. But I since I don't know that, I'm just going to base it off what I do know, in that, typically we've had 4 visors, and if there's only 4, we know for sure that the scan visor and that the combat visor are coming back. I just don't see it. I just don't see them taking one of those slots for a visor that we've already had. Like, I feel like it has to be something new, something unique, something fresh. But I do think that you're going to be able to control your ship in Prime 4. I hope so anyways. I really love that aspect of it. So, but yeah, I'm low. 11%.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Prime 3 does bring back the X-ray visor as it was in the original Prime game, and doesn't add anything new in that regard. The command visor is the only new visor in that game.
You're right. I guess I just feel like I feel like you kind of have to factor in like the amount of time in between two. Like, I guess this is probably just me speaking personally, but like that one felt like kind of okay to me because we got Prime 3 in kind of a quick succession, whereas with Prime 4, it's been so long that it's just kind of like, okay, like I really want new, fresh kind of ideas and stuff. So yeah, you're not wrong though. Like,
yeah. See, this is like a trick question because I'm with you. Like, I think we are going to get the expanded ship functionality. I just don't think it's gonna be tied to a visor. I think Samus is gonna be able to do it. Like, she's not gonna need to pull up a visor. I mean, it's either that or it is gonna be a situation where we're gonna be able to have, as I hope, and as you hope, and as you mentioned, multiple visors beyond 4, multiple weapons and beams beyond 4. And in which case, if that's the case and you can have 10 visors, then yeah, make the command visor a visor. So I guess it really comes down to how they apply it. I think if the fundamental statement is, are they going to incorporate the functionality of the command visor and expand upon it?
That's different.
That I think is, which I know is not the question, but I think that was like the underlying.
I'll accept it. Yeah.
Aspect of the question. Yeah. If that's really what it is, then like I would say it's like a 90%. I think we're going to get the expanded functionality of the command visor and have that incorporated in the game, because it's still, even with what we got in Prime 3, still is a lot more you could really do with that. Mm-hmm. If we're talking the command visor literally, I'm going to say 50%. It really, again, comes down to how many, if it's going to be like a thing where they just slap it into the game and Samus can pull up something on her arm and doesn't need a visor, or if it's going to be a lens she can swap through or something she can do in her combat visor mode. That I'm not sure about. And I agree that if they're going to incorporate visors, they got to bring something new and fresh, but I don't think that means they're going to drop the gunship functionality. So 50% on the command visor itself, but like 90% at least on combat visor functionality coming back and being expanded upon.
I could just see you picking up an item and it's like a doohickey, like a glitch from Reboot, and it's just like and on your wrist, and like there's your ship,
Yeah.
Look at this guy, by the way. 0%, 50% to 100%.
Well, you're like 47%. Like, what's the difference? 50%. Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of in this. I was gonna say I was kind of in the same camp as all you guys, where like I'm not sure if like it would be via the command visor itself, but yeah, like I feel like when people talk about the things they love from Prime 3, the command visor and specifically that shift functionality is one of the most universally like praised aspects of that, and either people are satisfied or man, I wish this went even further because this is such a cool concept. And I feel like, I mean, on one hand, it's really hard to say because we literally know nothing about how this game is going to play like, but I also feel like that's kind of the fun about the speculation aspect of it. And I want to believe that, like, the people developing Prime 3, specifically the people that are drawing up these game plans, are big fans of these trilogies, and I have to imagine that they would want to expand on this too, because of how universally beloved it is. So yeah, I'm going to ignore the command visor question and just go on, the ship control. I'm going to go 70% on that.
Well, I mean, if we're just talking like if the ship is coming back, I'm really high on that. Like,
well, obviously the ship is coming back. Like,
I don't know. I don't know if this ship's coming back.
You never know.
Bare minimum, it's going to be a save station, but I'm confident that we're going to get a lot more out of it.
Okay, I got a spicy meatball for you guys. Let's go. An Illumination Metroid movie would gross more than $750 million at the box office.
Domestically or internationally?
Like the whole thing,
Worldwide.
Worldwide. So one more time, an Illumination Metroid movie would gross more than $750 million at the box office worldwide.
1%.
750?
Really? 1%.
1%.
Explain yourself.
So hold up. I have to look up because I know Mario broke a billion.
I'm already looking at it. So like, I would put it at like 5 or 10%, maybe closer to 1. I mean, so you said $750 million?
Correct.
The Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse movie didn't even do that. $690 million. The Little Mermaid, $569 million. So like, I would argue more people know what Spider-Man or The Little Mermaid is, and those couldn't even. The Fast and the Furious movie couldn't beat that. There have only been 4 movies that have been released.
Mission
this
Impossible, or actually no, that didn't break 750 million.
It didn't.
Yeah, that's right. Mission Impossible sold under that. Yeah, that was like what, 500 or something.
It was 567 million. So like,
yeah,
4 movies this year have broken the 750 million mark. The Barbie movie, the Super Mario Brothers movie, Oppenheimer, and Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Then after that, every other movie, Fast 10, Spider-Man, Little Mermaid, Mission Impossible, Elemental, Ant-Man, John Wick, Transformers, none of these, Indiana Jones, none of these beat them. And all these IPs are way, 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 way more popular than Metroid. So, and if they couldn't do it, I mean, it would have to be a miracle, I think. It would have to be one of the best movies of all time, I think. So I'm going to also go with, it's going to be like 1 to 5%.
Yeah, a Metroid movie in general, I don't think would do that. And then on top of that, an Illumination Metroid movie just is not the right fit at all for that, too. So
I think Illumination could actually make a cool Metroid movie, but I do too. I don't think any Metroid movie, I don't think regardless who makes it, is not going to make $750 million worldwide. It could make some $100 million worldwide.
Maybe a James Cameron Metroid movie, but that's, I mean, that's not
okay.
happening.
I agree. A James Cameron live action Metroid movie, even that, I still don't think.
Yeah,
it would. I mean, it would literally have to be in the top.
I'm just
5
saying
movies
that's.
of the
I'm just
year.
saying that's the best shot of Metroid
I agree.
breaking.
Yeah, I
breaking
agree.
750.
I don't think any Metroid IP movie does that though. I mean, that's a lot of money. It's not only 4 movies have done that this year.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So I'm lower on this too, but I don't think I'm as low as you guys. Like I was going.
I'm shocked.
Well, like I was gonna go. I don't know. I was bandying around maybe 30%.
30%.
30%. Yeah.
You know what? I respect it. I respect it.
Well, like, and I think that there's just an appeal about these Illumination movies that have like a. Now the question really is because like I think that the appeal of the Illumination movies is like they're for families or for kids. The question is like, can you get Metroid to be appealing to those audiences? And I think if they cracked a way to do that, they could make a movie where it's like, like a really successful movie. And let me tell you kind of what I'm basing my thought process on here. Again, is like, I completely agree. Metroid is nowhere near the level of some of the movies that you've mentioned. But if we like you almost look at Marvel, right? And one of the movies that you mentioned was Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think if you would have asked people at the start of like the MCU, could a Guardians of the Galaxy movie ever gross $1 billion at the box office? No one would have said yes because nobody knows who the hell they are. But once you've kind of got that formula going, and I think Nintendo's going to kind of replicate the same thing. They're going to have like the Mario movies and then branch out to Donkey Kong and then branch out to Zelda. So it's almost going to be like, oh, the new Nintendo movie is coming out rather than like, oh, the Metroid movie is coming out. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of. I also think those are 2 completely different scenarios because I feel like obviously nowadays the state of the MCU is very different, but like back in the day, like Marvel was like associated with like high quality, interconnected films, and so even though no one knew who the hell the Guardians were, people saw the trailer, they thought, wow, this looks interesting, I still want to go out and see this. And then that word of mouth happened and more people went out to see that. And then now like James Gunn is like a household name now because of that.
And that movie almost made $775 million in the box office. So yeah, I mean, yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy, it's not like if the Metroid movie were to come out now, it would only be building on the Mario movie. Yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy movie by the time it came out it was 2014. Like I'm pretty sure
I'm not saying that the Metroid movie's coming out like tomorrow. I'm saying like at any point. Like maybe I should have kind of prefaced this with like
even at any point. Yeah, I mean it would still. I don't know, like, would it be seen as like the new Nintendo movie? I think because the Marvel movies have that story crossover, it's not just the IPs coming out with movies all around the same time. It's that they literally have stories crossing over with one another, which means there is incentive to see all of the movies. Whereas if I go see the Mario movie, I don't need to go then see the Metroid movie. And if I see the Metroid movie, I don't need to have seen the Mario movie to understand what's happening. So there is no, the only interconnectivity is the fact that they're made by Nintendo and Illumination. So I don't think there's the same effect
I see what you're saying.
there. Now I know it wouldn't be a horror movie most likely if it was an Illumination movie, but I just want to say the actual movies that Metroid was based off of, neither of them made anything close to $750 million. So,
which is a shame.
Which is a shame, but sci-fi in and of itself is not, the same as like a Mario or a Barbie or something like that. Like it has to be Avatar, I think. Like if you made it, the James Cameron put out, like if you had James Cameron's Metroid, I literally think that's the only way it would be able to make $750 million. I 100% agree with you, dude. If it was James Cameron's Metroid, I think that's...
And it would be the James Cameron name selling it, not the Metroid name.
100%.
Whip ass, by the way. That would be so awesome.
Which would be sick, and I would watch the hell out of that, but I literally think that is the one single way I think a Metroid movie would ever cross $750 million is James Cameron's Metroid. I'm sorry.
I see what you guys are saying. I don't know. I think you're... Like, I think people went to go see the Marvel movies for more than the interconnectivity. Yes, it was obviously a big deal, but I don't know. I'm not as low as you guys. I think it could with the proper build-up, of course.
Also, those movies are led by star actors. Like, people are going to see them acting in the movies, whereas you go to an Illumination movie, like, okay, it was funny that, like, Chris Pratt was Mario, blah, blah, but, like, people weren't going because Chris Pratt was voicing Mario. Like, the big reason why Iron Man blew up was because Robert Downey Jr. was playing Iron Man.
I would give you Iron Man, but I completely disagree with you. This is probably veering into a topic for another day, but like even Anthony Mackie said, like, Anthony Mackie is not a movie star. Like the Falcon and Captain America are movie stars. But he doesn't
play. But yes, but he was playing the Falcon.
Right.
Like, it wasn't like he was playing a like.
I think I actually agree with Andy here more on this, because like back then, like, Chris Pratt, like, certainly wasn't a nobody back then, but, like, Guardians was the movie that made him into the superstar he is today. Like, before then, most people knew him from Parks and Rec, which is an amazing show. I love it. But
I don't know.
I think what you're saying is valid, Dak. Like,
I think I think it's a little bit of both. It's definitely people going to see the characters. Now I think it's more so people are going to see the characters. But in the beginning, I definitely think, like, there was a big pull of Scarlett Johansson playing Black Widow, like Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man. Like, those were huge pulls. What's his face playing Thor. Now it's not a big deal.
He was a no-name when they cast him.
Was he?
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth.
So was Tom, what's his face that plays Loki too.
Hiddleston?
Yeah, and Chris Evans wasn't like the biggest star in the world. I mean, whatever, we're getting off topic, but I think all valid points here. Like, but I don't know. I guess I just believe. I want to believe. As
I guess
Doom
maybe
said.
He wasn't that big. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe in a world where we get James Cameron's Metroid.
Maybe. And if we got James Cameron's Metroid, by the way, guarantee you Sigourney Weaver would be showing up in that, which would just be the coup de grace of the whole thing.
We would all pop off.
She would voice Mother Brain or something.
Sigourney Weaver absolutely has to be involved in a Metroid movie if they make one day. Like, if she's not, my head will explode. Anyway, okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Dak, what do you got for us?
All right, I got one. Metroid Prime Federation Force and Metroid Prime Pinball will never be ported off of their original systems.
Oh.
So I was originally going to include Hunters, but I forgot it was on the Wii U Virtual Console. So it has been ported.
So like NSO counts as porting off. Like, it doesn't have to be like a physical. Okay.
Yeah. Does it any appearing on a new officially legally system?
Doom, you
Federation
go
Force
ahead.
and Pinball will not.
It breaks my heart, but that's a 70% for me.
You know what?
God, Pinball deserved better.
If it was just Pinball, it'd be an easy 100%, and I never give 100%. But I think there's a chance for Federation Force, like a small chance. So they will never be is the statement, right?
Never. Like you'll only be able to play them on their original systems. I just because I look at I go to the Metroid website, right? I go to Metroid.Nintendo.com, whatever it is, and it's like this is how you can play all the Metroid games on Switch. You can tell like they're bringing the important games that matter, and like in the grand scheme of things, playing Pinball and Federation Force is not like a game you need to play to get the whole Metroid story. So like when I look at the games they're missing, I'm like, well, obviously they need like, I mean, even then you have they need Other M. I think Other M is probably the missing
unfortunately,
link.
Other M,
Other M link right now
of all games has a substantially better chance of appearing on
Other M
hardware
is
than
going to,
Pinball.
I mean, Zero Mission is not technically needed because someone can play the original Metroid, but I assume Zero Mission is going to eventually show up on Nintendo Switch Online. But aside from that, I mean, Samus Returns, I think, is going to get its... I think Samus Returns will get its remaster or its HD port or whatever it is. I think Samus Returns will show up. Zero Mission will show up. Super Metroid's already there. I think eventually we're going to get 2 and 3 of the trilogy for Prime. And then we need Other M.
I think we're going to get Other M too. Yeah.
And then we have Fusion, we have Dread. So like we wouldn't need technically if someone were like, I need the full Metroid experience, Nintendo could be like, you don't really need to play Federation Force and Pinball and Hunters.
Honestly, the only part about Federation Force that's relevant is Silex taking the Metroid egg, which I could very just easily see them just having like the CGI cutscene at the beginning of...
I was going to say, that's probably just going to happen in the beginning of Prime 4.
Yeah.
Like that'll just be the first thing that we see, and that won't even be relevant, because who happened to what, 70,000 people saw that cutscene, maybe? Like,
maybe?
It doesn't matter. Like, just show it in Prime 4.
Less than would go see the Metroid movie, the Illumination Metroid movie, that's for damn sure.
True.
I'm going... Oh, man. I'm going to go, like, 85%. And that's actually, like, lower than I was thinking of going. Because I do think that 3DS games are going to appear on NSO or whatever the Switch 2 equivalent of NSO is. And I can't say it's impossible that I think Federation Force would show up, but I think it is not likely. And actually, I'm gonna bump it up to 92% because like Pinball's never coming back. It's never coming back.
Yeah,
there's not very many reasons to bring back Federation Force. Ouch.
I don't think it would be a Switch 2 NSO. I think if we're going to see it, would be somewhere in the line of like Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which I'm still not convinced that it's the start of a 3DS initiative, but I really hope it is because that would be really awesome.
I don't know if it's an initiative, but I do think it won't be the only one, and I do think Samus Returns is probably on the docket there.
Because the thing is, like, you can't just port them to the Switch because of that dual screen stuff. You would have to like readapt those to Switch controls as well, and that alone I think warrants support rather than just an emulation app.
Yeah, I think Federation Force is just like, if they're gonna bring back a 3DS Metroid game, it's gonna be Samus Returns and not both. And then Pinball, it's like, I love Metroid Prime Pinball, but if they aren't making new Pokemon Pinball games, they're not doing anything with Metroid Prime Pinball. They're just not. They're not gonna, because they'll do something with Pokemon first. And I love both of them, but I love me some Pokemon Pinball.
Pinball missed its chance with the mobile initiative.
I know. I don't understand why they didn't do any pinball games for mobile. Like, that would have been the one thing I would have downloaded. I want some gotcha Fire Emblem game. Let me play Pokemon Pinball on Metroid Prime Pinball. That's what I wanted to play. But they never did it, and I never understood that.
Too bad. I think the best Nintendo mobile game was Dr. Mario, actually. That was a great game to play.
I forgot about that.
If you're sitting on the job or something like that.
I actually really enjoy. I really enjoy Super Mario Run with the Toad rallies. Those are like so much fun to compete in.
Oh, but Mario Kart! I take that back. I did play Mario Kart Tour for a hot minute when it first came out, and it was honestly pretty neat playing Mario Kart, a real Mario Kart game on your phone. It was kind of cool.
Do you remember Miitopia, like the first one that they had? That's what it's called, right? Miitopia or what? That was a strange game.
I thought that was an actual game for the Switch.
I don't think it was called Miitopia actually. It was called something.
I remember
else.
Miitopia because wasn't that like a 3DS thing too? It was like
Miitopia was like the Me RPG.
What's the game I'm thinking of?
Miitomo, that's what it was.
Miitomo, yes! What a weird game that was. Very strange. Oh, okay, Doom, what do you got next for us? Give us our next Samus's percentages.
Miitomo.
All right. Well, Dak actually mentioned this during the last Samus percentages, so we'll just go all in right now. Metroid Prime 2 and 3 HD, not remastered. Prime 2 and 3 HD come to the Switch before Metroid Prime 4?
Yeah. I think the next Prime game we're getting is Prime 4, man. So I think that's gonna be I'm gonna say like a 32. I think we're getting Prime. I think the next Prime game we see is gonna be Prime 4. Metroid Prime 4 is probably gonna take place after Prime 3 and before Metroid 2. It's gonna be a Prime game, but I don't think it's gonna be like a game where you really need to know what happened in the first three. It's gonna be kind of like a soft reboot in that way for the Prime series, so I don't think there's as much of a urgency to get 2 and 3 onto the system beforehand. So I don't think it's going to happen, whether it's a full remaster or just a partial HD upscale remaster. Yeah, I mean it's because it wouldn't be a full remaster is what I'm assuming you mean by just the HD, like just a port HD port. It's a low lift.
So you're not talking remastered. It's just like the Skyward Sword equivalent.
Metroid Prime 2 and 3 HD.
Okay.
Well, he's talking about a remaster, just not like a full blown remaster. Just like an upscale, like a HD port. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you meant like remaster 2, and I was gonna be like, dude, 1%.
Yeah, no.
Definitely not full remasters, but just like an HD port remaster type deal. I still, even with the low lift, I still say it's like a 30, 35. It could happen, but I think it's kind of on the low end because I think they're all sales forward on Metroid Prime 4 at this point.
I think I agree. I think if there was a time to announce it, it was probably in the last Direct, and they didn't. And I'm still pretty confident that like Metroid Prime 4 is going to be out in 2024. Like I think so.
Yep.
So like when are you doing that? If Metroid Prime 4 is out in 2024, that means that Metroid Prime 2 and 3 basically have to be like some kind of bundle almost if that's going to happen. They certainly wouldn't be remastered. For everything Dak said, and just like a gut feeling, I kind of don't think so. I feel like releasing Metroid Prime Remastered almost kind of kiboshed that, because like it to me it still made, as much as I love Remastered, I think I still would have, if I had my way, have released like all HD of the trilogy, but like one game, just like the Metroid Prime trilogy. They went the other direction, so I don't know if 2 and 3 are going to be coming. I think that they'll probably get on NSO at some point eventually, which I'm going to segue to. But I'm going to go... What did you give it, Dak? Like 30%?
I said 30... 32.
Yeah, I'm going to go... I'm going to go like 35. I'm pretty much on the same page as you.
Okay.
65%.
Okay.
So obviously, Andy, you think Switch 2 is coming out sometime in like May. Obviously, I think it's going to be more
not
of a
even
fall
May
release.
necessarily. Even if it comes out in fall, like I don't see it.
I think fall release, and I'm not necessarily sure if Prime 4 is going to be a launch title. Could be. I'm not really leaning one way or the other on that yet. Could be a launch title. Could come out early 2025 for all I see.
Oh,
I could
God.
absolutely.
2025.
It has to be a launch title. Has to be.
Early 20.
It's a long. I'm putting. Here's a Samus percentage for you. 100%. It's a launch title for the Switch 2, regardless when the Switch 2 drops. Metroid Prime 4 drops. 100%.
I don't give out 100%, but I'm gonna go 98% on that.
100%.
Has to be.
That's a Samus's percentage for you.
All right. Anyway, sorry we cut you off, too. What were you saying?
All good. But yeah, I'm still, I don't even want to say want to believe. I believe that Prime 2 and 3 is part of the runway leading to Prime 4. Obviously, it's not going to be as major. Prime Remastered was there to show that Retro still has what it takes. They can still make absolutely incredible games, and that it's only going to be a taste of what Prime 4 looks like. Prime 2 and 3 are just going to be there just to like keep the Metroid momentum going, and it's going to go right into Prime 4. Just maybe a few months after that Prime 3 release. By this time, we already know that the Switch 2 is out there. It just segues right into there. It feels... Here's the thing. On one hand, it makes sense, but like making sense and Nintendo don't exactly mix well together. But like it feels right.
I don't know. I think I actually disagree, because I think it would be wise to not oversaturate people with too much Metroid Prime. Like I think I don't think you need to like build it up with. I don't actually think you don't need to put out 2 games before you put out the game you actually really want to put out. Because then by then, some people might be like, "Well, I already just bought 3 Metroid Prime games. Why do I need this one? This one looks great." And these
I think it depends how you market them. Like if you market them as like major releases on Prime 4, yeah, you're gonna oversaturate.
But they're not.
But they're like, if you market them similarly to like Pikmin 1 and 2, like I don't think that took away or added to the Pikmin 4 sales. And then meanwhile, you also had Pikmin 3 Deluxe, which was kind of like, of those, that was like the bigger deal kind of Switch port. That you had, a year or two, before the release of Pikmin 4. So I could absolutely see something similar like that with Prime 2 or 3, where it's, just a small tide-you-over release for like more the hardcore fans, maybe a couple of new fans that are interested in checking out, but most of you guys can skip out on it. Prime 4 is the main course, and if you are new to the series, you don't have to play these games, but we recommend it if you want to.
I mean, I can't comment on the state of the game for Pikmin, so I don't know how that went. I'm not a huge Pikmin fan. I don't know how that affected people's desire or not for Pikmin 4. But I will say that, like, at least from my perspective, like, if I was Nintendo, I wouldn't need to do that because they just released Metroid Prime Remastered in the past 2 years, right? Like, if you're a hardcore fan, that's what's holding you over. And if you're a hardcore fan, you're going to wait regardless, right? You don't need to be held over because you're going to buy the game whether it comes out next year or 3 years from now. The casual fans are the ones that see the game and they're going to buy it or not at that moment. And I think if you hit them with Metroid Prime 2, then Metroid Prime 3 and Metroid Prime 4, you're all of a sudden spreading people thin and you're giving them too many options. Sometimes it's best, especially in marketing, sometimes it's best just give someone the one option and push them in that direction. And so, yeah, I mean, would it necessarily take away sales? Like, I'm not saying that, but I don't necessarily think that they would be looking at it, or it's necessary for them to look at it as we need Metroid Prime 2 to help and 3 to help build up the hype. I think Metroid Prime Remastered clearly showed there's a demand for Metroid Prime. Now when Metroid Prime 4 drops, it's going to be hype regardless. The hardcore fans are waiting for it anyway, so you don't need to hold them over. And the casual fans will know it's a big deal when they market that game. I think the 2 and 3 things are just too like small for them to really like. I think they're putting all their eggs in the Prime 4 basket at this point. Like Metroid Prime 1, they're probably working on it to get ready for Prime 4. Okay, great. And it came out. Like I don't think they needed to put it out to prove Retro still has it. I think Retro still has it, and they worked on the game and then they released it as a result. And now they're working on Prime 4.
Or Retro wanted to prove that they still had it because the last game they did was Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, which was almost 10 years ago.
Here's the thing.
We can't really know that. Like, I don't think they release games to prove themselves. They release games to make money.
Yeah,
and they
here's the thing. Both of you are right in your own way. Now, Doom, I agree with you, but I would change your wording just slightly. I think it felt right to have the trilogy out, and as I was just kind of alluding to, I think that you could have went one of 2 ways. You could have released the entire Metroid Prime trilogy as one game and just marketed that and released that for people to check out to get, to kind of get ready, get into that Prime mode. Or you could have released the Metroid Prime Remastered route to show off a little bit more of the technical prowess and maybe a glimmer of what you could expect rather than to kind of catch up on all the high highs of the series. And I think that because they went the remastered route, I think that it's just it gets less likely to me as more time passes in between that coming out and where we are today that 2 and 3 are coming. I could absolutely still see them coming out, but before Prime 4, I don't think so. I think it would follow like the Pikmin 1 and 2 example where it's like, here's, Metroid Prime 4 is coming out. And by the way, after you're done with that, if you loved it, here's these classic titles that are available on the eShop that you can pick up in like 2 months from now or something like that. That's kind of where I think, like, but again, you're not wrong. Like, I think you had that opportunity to release all 3 games, but they instead chose to just put their eggs just in like the remastered basket versus all 3.
Well, those Pikmin ports came out at least digitally a month before Pikmin 4. It wasn't the physical edition that came out until after Pikmin 4. So maybe that's kind of the route they go, where it's like, hey, once the Prime 4 marketing thing is over and that's all done, then we can release physical versions of 2 and 3. But before then, if you want to try it out, they're up on the eShop right now. $60 total.
Maybe. Yeah. Could be. Okay, so I guess it's my turn here. So what do you say? Like one more each? Actually, I'm I've got a special one that I want to sneak in after.
All right. If we're gonna get one more each, then I have. Can we get two more each, but not spend too much time
All right,
on one of them?
let's do 2 each and go quick. Okay.
Okay.
I'm doing just one more, so
Okay.
you guys can do 2 if you want.
Okay. Great. Let's go. Samus will appear as a playable character in Mario Kart 9.
Ooh, that's a good one. Doom, go ahead.
And I want to preface this. I'm not. This question does not say that Samus appears like day 1. Could be part of DLC, whatever. But yeah, Samus appears as a playable character in Mario Kart 9.
Yeah, and this is Samus herself, no Mii costumes, right?
Correct. Yes, like Link or like Isabelle or like the Inkling.
Ooh, you know, I'm actually gonna go higher than I would have thought I would before you asked this question. I think I'm gonna go with 70% on this actually, and this is the reason specifically why. The reason why specifically is because I feel like Mario Kart 9 is going to be an early Switch 2 title, if not a Switch 2 launch title, and I feel like that would be like a perfect promotional opportunity for Metroid Prime 4.
Okay.
And I feel like I could see it happening. Yeah, 70% Samus, along with a racetrack, Metroid themed racetrack for
like
Mario
the Bryn
Kart 9.
Star track. I didn't think about the cross promotion. Actually, that's a good point. I'm gonna go high too. I was gonna go 60%, but maybe I'm gonna bump it up to 65 after hearing your reasoning. I just think like where else does Mario Kart have to go other than kind of transitioning into Nintendo Kart? Like I just like. I can't stomach the thought, like, even in Mario Bros. Wonder, it's like, oh, great, we can play as Daisy now. Like, who cares? Like, she's exactly the same as Peach.
I love it.
Well, I guess maybe I'm in the minority, but, like, when I'm playing Mario Kart 9 and it's like, now I can play as Gold Cat Baby Rosalina, I'm just like... Well, you know what? That's great, but I feel like I'd rather play as Samus or anyone else, you know? Like
the gold characters and the baby characters, that sucks. But like Funky Kong, Dixie Kong, Lakitu, give me like those underrated King Bob-omb, give me those like I love like when they throw in like these super like C-tier characters. I love it.
He's like that's like you might as well put a Goomba in there.
He's the guy that tells you to go, and you get to play as him. Like that's awesome.
I think you're both right. I think personally, I think it's kind of funny when they come up with like Strawberry Jello Mario and like Cookies and Cream Peach. Like I think like they just come up with these nonsense characters. I think that's fun. I also think it's fun when they bring in characters I know. I also think it's fun when they bring in random enemies. I mean, I personally am on the team of. I always thought it was really cool when they put Piranha Plant in Smash Brothers. Like that was super cool.
Mm-hmm.
That was so ludicrous. It was great.
Exactly. It's like you could. It proves that you can literally make anybody a character in Smash. And Mario Kart, you could literally make anyone a driver. So, on one hand, I like how goofy Mario Kart gets and ridiculous. On the other hand, yeah, I think it's likely that they bring in other Nintendo characters to fill in some of the slots. And with that, with Doom, go ahead.
Gonna say kind of somewhat on this tangent, but like to me, I feel like Mario Kart should like treat the additional Nintendo characters as like the way the guest characters are treated in Smash, where it doesn't necessarily become Nintendo Kart, but you start doubling down more on those guest characters. I mean, but at the end of the day, they're still guest characters.
Is already like it's a majority Mario Kart characters, but then you have a couple. You have Link and the villagers and whatnot. I think that's how it should be. Like, still keep it a majority of Mario characters, and then add in a few more Nintendo ones. I think I can't give you a percentage, but I think it's entirely based on whether or not Samus still has a cameo in the new Super Mario RPG. If Samus is still in that bed, sleeping in the bed, I think Samus shows up in a Mario Kart game as a playable character. If she does not, she's swapped out for another one, it's not happening. I think
her toy is still in the game. We've seen.
I know her toy is, but the trailer.
It's the other M suit, unfortunately, which sucks.
But that's not Samus. That's not Samus. The actual Samus is in bed, just like Link is in Super Mario RPG. If that's actual Samus still in that bed, she still makes a cameo as Samus.
She's gonna be there.
If she's there,
she'll be there.
Then I think she will be playable Mario Kart 9 eventually. If she's not, I do not think she will be.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's what I got.
All right, Dak.
Okay, I have two, but the last one is more of it doesn't need too much discussion, so this is my real one. Metroid Prime 4 will have an optional 2-player local co-op mode for the campaign. So
A
the single
local
player,
Two-player local
mode.
co-op.
I mean, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be local.
I was
Forget
gonna
about the
say, like,
local
define
mode.
that. Like,
A
are we
co-op
talking
mode.
like someone can sit there with the second Joy-Con, like,
You know
collect
what? I
the
realized I
dubits?
gave you guys too many words, and that was my fault. Let me trim it down for you. Metroid Prime 4 will have an optional co-op mode for the single player campaign. 2-player co-op.
The
Local or
only
online,
way
it
I
doesn't
can
matter.
see that is if like a player, you know how in like Super Mario Galaxy, the second player could collect all the star
I knew you were
bits?
gonna say that. I thought about that. It could be either that or like a full controlling a character. But yes, that would count.
I mean,
Here's
I
what
guess I
I'm
could
gonna
see
say.
that, but I can't
Okay.
see like I think the spirit of the question I think implies that like co-op is like you actually like two players are contributing
Two
equally
Samuses.
to
Yeah.
So in the spirit of your question, I'm gonna go low. I'm gonna go
I
20%.
I feel that, but I was counting a 1.5 player situation like Super Mario
Okay,
Galaxy.
I think that the percentage is much higher if you're counting that. I think for the purposes of my answer, I'm gonna just like
Right.
in the spirit, like two players are contributing to the
Yes,
game,
yes.
and I think that's low. It probably like I don't know, like 40% if it's just like the wiggle waggle collecting the star bits.
Okay, Doom.
So I am not opposed to a co-op mode. I think that there's a lot of potential there. I personally don't think it's likely. I'm gonna go 10% on any type of co-op features in Prime 4. Now,
Really?
competitive multiplayer, different story. I
Not
think that
talking
percentage
about-
goes ways up.
Not
That
not
goes way
talking
up.
about obviously y'all know my opinion on that.
Mhm.
Not talking about any kind of multiplayer in terms of like a traditional competitive PvP type thing.
But yeah,
or
any
non-competitive PvP.
any type of co-op features, even if it's Samus's droid or Adam like collecting star bits, like that's gonna be a 10% for me.
Really? I think it's very likely actually. In both regards, either star bits or 2-player. It's just when I think of like Nintendo games, like I think those are the games that are going to give you an opportunity to like bring a friend or bring a family member along for the ride. And does it go against like kind of the core essence of Metroid in some ways, especially for a single player campaign? Yes. But it's still a game and it would be optional, you know? Like I think if you don't build the game around that, that's one thing. If you just, if the game is still purely supposed to be played single player, but then you have the option to have someone come and help you, it might make the game easier, yes. But I think it would be for those scenarios where you have a friend or brother or sister or whatever, or a family member or a friend who wants to get into the game or is not good at games, whatever, and you want to drag them along for the ride. That's how you would do that. And if anything, if that's ever going to happen in a game, I feel like it would make sense for it to happen in a Nintendo game. So
Well,
I think it's likely.
I like the idea, and I think that especially like once we see the gameplay of Prime 4 and see how it plays, I think you could absolutely make a co-op mode work, and not just work just because it's co-op, but actually like genuinely make it part of the game and make it fun. I mean, I was just talking about Mario Wonder earlier, and I would have never thought like a community-driven like co-op experience would work, but I feel like it elevates that game so much higher. And I think there's absolutely a way that you could do that with Metroid and still keep those more isolationist aspects intact. That being said, I don't necessarily think Nintendo is going to go in that direction. And even recent releases, like Tears of the Kingdom, that is single player only. There is zero co-op at all whatsoever, and so I don't necessarily think that stuff like that is required.
To be fair, that game is an open world game, and doing co-op for open world where you can just run off wherever you want, any direction, is difficult. I mean, Halo Infinite notoriously didn't release with co-op because they couldn't make it work. Not that 343 is really setting a bar very high, but still, like it's a big feat compared to other games which maybe are more linear or smaller, where you can keep people closer, so co-op makes more sense. And Metroid, if it's not going to be open world, it might be big, but if it's not going to be true open world, then the co-op I think makes more sense than like Tears of the Kingdom, which is true open world.
Well, let me ask you guys a question. You can educate me because I don't know the answer to this, but like, how many Switch games can you think of where there's co-op and both players aren't on like the same screen at the same time? Like they're in different rooms doing different things. I can't think of any. That like the only co-op Nintendo games I can think of, like the players all share the same screen and they can see what everybody's doing at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's a hard comparison because most Nintendo games aren't in first person either.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
like,
Even like Federation Force for for all that game, like I guess you could make the case that like you are actually apart, but I mean, for the most part, I feel like
You're in the
kinda,
same room pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
it's
don't
all
know that
linear
they're going to
levels,
be.
too,
I don't know
so.
that they're going to be anxious to revisit Federation Force. Speaking of,
Yeah, it
So,
certainly wouldn't be
it's
easy. I
tough.
mean, even if you think about like, let's say you tried to put like like co-op into any of the existing Metroid games,
Yeah.
would be difficult, you know. So
I
maybe
wouldn't mind it either. By the way, I think
maybe
that
my
would be fun.
percentage is high. I think maybe the Galaxy style version is high, and maybe the true 2-player is lower.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I can still see it. I think it's possible. I just don't know.
You know,
Okay.
I don't think this scenario is likely at all because I feel like both versions would have parity. But I wonder if like maybe the Switch 2 version is powerful enough to handle the co-op, and it's just not included on the Switch version. I don't think they would do that. I think both versions
I
would
don't
have
think
parity.
so.
But yeah.
What would happen is the Switch 2 player gets to play the actual game, and the Switch 1 player gets to shoot the star bits, and that's how they would do it.
He's playing. Do you remember playing Celeste, where like you could find that little like 8-bit game that you can find and play the 8-bit version of Celeste? That's what the Switch person is playing. And if you haven't played
I
Celeste,
own
you should play
Celeste,
that.
and I
was
own
gonna say, I've never
Celeste,
played
and I
it.
need to play it someday.
I think it's one of the best games I've ever played. Like a top 20 game, actually. It's really awesome.
I've heard
Anyways.
nothing but good things about it. But yeah.
All right, let's keep it moving, Doom. What's your next Samus Percentages?
All right. Mercury Steam's next 2D Metroid will have a soundtrack that most fans agree is at least passable.
I'm high on this. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that like you could ask people right now, do you find Metroid Dread soundtrack passable? And they'd say yes. So
People don't know
I'm
what
high
they're
on
talking
this.
about. They don't know what they're talking about, unfortunately.
And like the key word there is passable though. Like Metroid Dread's soundtrack is very passable. So is Samus Returns. Is it great? No.
What do we mean by passable? Because like on one hand,
I think you should be bold
Let
and
me-
change
let
that
me-
to great.
Let
not
me
passable.
rephrase.
yeah.
Yeah,
What is passable?
most fans
'Cause-
are
yeah.
Metroid fans are going to agree that Mercury Steam, that the soundtrack for the next 2D Mercury Steam game is going to be really good. Not necessarily a top 5, but really good, and have, you know, a good amount of like, you know, hits to pull from that people pick from. And it's like, oh yeah, that song right there, universally like beloved.
This is so tough because like of everything, like even when we did definitive ranking last week, right? Like of all of those categories, music is by far the most subjective, and maybe story comes after that. But like music is so subjective that it's like, you know, like you could have an album that sells 100 million copies by Garth Brooks. He just put out this great new country album, but like if you don't like country, you think it sucks. You know, like it's so hard to quantify.
It's different because like I feel like when you're going into a Metroid game, like you generally know, you know, the kind of musical styles that you can expect, where it's like, you know, if you would know like, hey, I prefer country, or I prefer metal, or I prefer pop, like you kind of know what directions you're going to buy, what kind of artists you're going to be into in that regards.
I like yes, but I feel like there's so much room for subjectiveness.
I got an answer since Andy
Okay.
seems to be unable to come to one. I'm gonna say like a 15% because so far Mercury Steam is 0 for 2 on soundtracks. So I have no faith that it's gonna be a great soundtrack for the next one. So
Okay, so the question is
That's what
really good, right?
Yeah, really good.
Okay.
Like
so,
the average opinion is that everyone agrees that it is
Okay.
a good soundtrack.
So I see your answer, Dak, and let me raise you this. I think it really depends on what the next game Mercury Steam makes is, because I think there's two options that they could do. Metroid Fusion or Metroid 6. So if it's Metroid Fusion, I think that music's going to be really good, because like I think it's going to be updated themes basically of music
that's
that was
my
held
worry.
back.
It's gonna be different. I don't know if it's gonna be updated. It'll be updated, but will it be better? Is the question, because Samus Returns has updated music, but is it better than Return of Samus' soundtrack?
Well, it's just that's my
I
point
think
though.
so.
Is it's so different. It's all this ambient nonsense in that game, which actually, like, I shouldn't call it nonsense. It sounds fine. while
Fusion
you're
has
playing.
actual good tracks in that game.
But
You
that's-
might not like that the speakers were good, but the game has some good soundtrack.
I'm talking about Samus Returns, not Fusion.
Oh,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
the Fusion. Okay.
Yeah, no, like Samus, like I think Metroid Fusion does have good songs that definitely could be like with a better sound chip processor. Like they could sound really awesome. And so if that's your next game, then like, yeah, I think a lot of people are going to say like, damn, that sounds good. I'm going to go high. I'm going to go 60% because I think like, I think the music was fine in Dread and Samus Returns. And I think that they probably know that maybe the music wasn't as beloved as it was in other Metroid games. So yeah, I think that they're gonna produce a game. Whether I think if it's Fusion, it's like way higher than 60%. If it's Metroid 6, I think that it's gonna be really good. I don't know. I guess I just don't see them like not. I guess I just don't see them making two games that kind of had like so-so soundtracks and coming out with a third that's just kind of like as well. So yeah.
I want to believe.
So first off, before I answer the question, I really like Samus Returns soundtrack. I just think it's utilized really poorly. I've already talked about it on multiple episodes of the podcast. I think the actual material, for the most part, is like an overall solid B material, but it's just like throughout the game, it's just utilized so poorly that what should be a good song is either barely used at all or used too much, and then some of those more ambient tracks just take way more precedent and just kind of overshadow, some of those, more intricate pieces. But that's not the question. I'm not going to get into that. I am going to give this a 70%, and it's actually for a reason that you just gave, Andy, because I feel like one of the most consistent review critiques of Metroid Dread is that soundtrack. Whether it be fan reviewers or like, journalists reviewing the game, what's the most common criticisms you can get? Wow, Metroid Dread is one of the best Metroid games ever. That soundtrack, though, real stinker. And I feel like Mercury Steam, if they're going to hear that, they're at the very least going to take more note of that soundtrack and take it. I don't necessarily take it more seriously. I feel like they did try to take it seriously during this game, or at least the composer that Nintendo gave them during this game. But it's going to be more present in their minds. Like, okay, this is the big area we really have to improve on this time. My one concern, though, is that I worry that they might get the wrong idea from Dread's soundtrack, and they might hear, because like a lot of people when they describe Metroid Dread, they say, oh, it wasn't memorable enough, and I worry that maybe they're going to overcorrect, and maybe Metroid 6 is just like 60-70% like, classic tracks that we've heard before, and then like 30% new tracks, which I really hope they don't do. I really hope they still emphasize new original material with just enough, of the hits sprinkled in there, or maybe some of those B-sides as well, which, we would love to hear as well. That's my one concern of why I'm not going 100%, but I am confident. At the very least, I think it's going to be a visible or audible improvement, I guess, over Dread's soundtrack, and I'm confident that it's going to be a good one.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I've got one final one here, and it's kind of not very serious, but I thought I would ask anyways, and you guys are going to dump all over me for it, but I don't know. Part of me just wants to believe, So here we go. Let me start as I close my app that has the question in it. Okay. In the spirit of Metroid Dread coming back to life after God knows how many years, Raven Blade finds new life and is a video game that comes out eventually, sometime, in some way, in some fashion. I might have to break my own rule here, but man, that'd be so cool.
I like the optimism, but that's a 0, my friend. I'm sorry.
I'll never say never. That's like one of those things where it's so ridiculous it probably will happen. I think if Retro Studios was like its own big independent studio, I would say, yeah, that's actually probably could happen. I'm going to put it at like a 10% because it's probably not going to happen.
Okay.
I think there's a chance because like obviously there was some fanfare behind Metroid Dread. It was part of an established series. Raven Blade was a new IP. There is no fan base for it. And so I don't think people are really clamoring for it. And I don't think it was ever in as development as like...
It wasn't far along.
Yeah, it wasn't far along. And obviously whatever was developed back then is not going to be relevant today. But it could be one of those things where like Retro wraps up with Metroid again. And they're like, what should we do? and they go back and they're like, what if we brought back Raven Blade? Wouldn't that be sick? Like, it's like Bungie going back to Marathon 30 years later, like they're doing right now. Like, it's like, I don't think it's not the craziest thing I've heard. I'm gonna say 10%.
Okay, you know, I was gonna say 5% for basically everything that you guys just said. I think there'd be something just so incredibly poetic about that. Like,
It'd be cool.
It would be cool, and like you're totally right. Like, whatever they did back then is totally irrelevant now. But maybe they just have like the premise for the story kicking around, and like
the concept art, like building off of that,
100%. I wonder about that because I don't think like a lot of people know Raven Blade. Certainly not as much as they knew Metroid Dread. Even like a casual Nintendo fan, I think might have known Metroid Dread.
I would say a super majority of people don't even, especially Nintendo fans, don't know.
But I think that there's some people like it would be one of those things. It's like if you knew about Raven Blade, and I don't think it's like a total like. I think it's like maybe like 10% of Nintendo fans know about Raven Blade. And I think for those 10%, that'd be really cool. So it was kind of like a tongue in cheek, almost like a joke, because I think it's so unlikely. But I'm gonna say 5%.
This isn't a serious question, but I have to add that. I have to add to some of that as well. Dak, you mentioned Marathon as well. I think a big difference there is Marathon is already an established IP. There's two Marathon games.
What the hell is
not
Marathon?
Just one, but two.
Marathon was what Bungie worked on before Halo and Destiny, like in the 90s. You're right. Yeah, it's not the same. Marathon was an actual Marathon games came out, so it's not the same. You're right.
Yeah, and then Raven Blade, obviously that never came out, but like on top of that, like again, like the retro we have today is significantly different than the original retro that proposed Raven Blade. I'm not sure if any of those current staffs would really have a passion to do that Raven Blade project, assuming they even still have that original project backed up. They might not even have that as far as we know.
I mean, it could be something along the lines of the new employees being like, "Oh, look at this from back in the day. That would be cool if we brought it back." Like they can
cool idea.
Like I can. Yeah.
I think if retro became independent, kind of like Bungie inevitably did, the chance goes up. Still not very likely, but goes up. But as long as they're still part of Nintendo, I think as of right now, Nintendo is trying to build retro back up to be the Metroid studio as well as another support studio, because they were also like I remember Mario Kart 7 in particular. They were a huge support studio while they were also working on Tropical Freeze, and then after that they just kind of fell apart and didn't do anything. And we're seeing Nintendo utilize a lot of their studios. Monolith Soft is like one of their biggest support studios that has a hand in almost every game that's coming out today. And I think they want to do the same thing with retro, but also like, hey, your main IP is going to be Metroid in this case.
Metroid Prime 4: The Raven Blade.
Heyo.
And it's a Metroid game based on the original Raven Blade concept.
I don't want to get into this discussion because we're already running a bit long here, but I don't think that Nintendo just wants retro to be the Metroid guys. I think that they want them to be like a big prestige developer, which is why they gave them Donkey Kong, which is why they gave them Mario Kart. But we can revisit this at another time. What's your last Samus's percentages, Dak?
This is a Metroid one, so we'll leave us on a real Metroid one. Anthony Higgs will appear in the next Metroid game. Boom. What do you think?
So it's funny that you asked that, because I had a percentages written down, but I deleted it because I feel like I've asked it before actually, and my question was like, does Nintendo ever acknowledge any of the characters or events from Metroid Other M again? And
I think if they're going to, it'll be Anthony Higgs appearing.
I think it will too. I could see it, and I think that he's pretty universally beloved figure from that game.
Like one of the two things from that game, that anyone should like.
So the question is, what, like, if he will come back?
No. The statement is Anthony Higgs will appear in the next Metroid game.
Oh, in the next, are you talking like Metroid 6 or like Metroid Prime 4?
Either one. The next Metroid game, whatever one you think is the next Metroid game.
Oh God, that's low. That's like if Mercury Steam is developing Metroid 6 and Retro's developing Metroid Prime 4.
I don't even think Admiral Dane appears in Prime 4, let alone Anthony Higgs. So.
Yeah. And Metroid 6 would be the game, I think, that the only chance for our boy to come back. It's a low percentage, man. That's like a 4%. Although
All
that
right,
would be
4%.
sweet if he came in. I
Okay,
gotta say.
Doom, what do you think?
That's a flat O.
I think y'all are underselling this. I think that Admiral Dane and Anthony Higgs are going to appear at some point in the future again. But for the next
Yes.
Metroid game, I think Anthony Higgs is going to be our Proteus Ridley. I think he's going to bridge the gap
You're
between
crazy.
Okay.
the games. I think he's going to bridge the gap between Other M and the Prime games. I think it's going to happen.
I don't think that's insane, actually. Like, I guess I could see that.
I'm
However,
putting 100% on it. I'm putting 5 on it that Anthony Higgs appears in the next Metroid game, whether it's Prime 4 or Metroid 6 or anything else.
this is like when you make a bet, like, and you put $5 down that David Spade is going to win an Oscar this year, and like you get like $3 million if he does. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I will say, like, I think we were talking about, will there be like a, actually, I don't know if we were talking about this or not, but like if there was like a Metroid spinoff, yeah, we were, in the next couple of years, that I could see. Like, man, if Anthony Higgs was in Federation Force, like, that would have been cool.
That would have been
That
dope.
would have been a good game to bring him in. So something like that, yeah, I could see that. But I can't
Well,
see
see,
that
I
in the
feel
next
like
Metroid game.
the Prime games in particular, I don't think ever acknowledge Other M. The 2D games, I mean, we even saw in Metroid Dread, you know, you had the ending art, you know, that referenced Other M, and then you also had, I think, Adam in like that one screenshot that kind of had that montage of like the 2D Metroids. So like, I could see maybe a reference to him in like a 2D Metroid, but even then, those were like ending screenshots, and that came out on like the 35th anniversary. So there was also something.
That's
there was
why
also something special about that game.
That's why I think it's gonna happen, because I think it's gonna be like a curve, you know, like it's gonna be a curveball.
But the next game,
That's what I mean, look, I do think I just because I think it would be more fun that way. But just if I was Retro, because they didn't want to acknowledge the Prime games and Other M. If I was Retro, I'd be like, well, we're gonna acknowledge you in our games. Like we're gonna connect it with whether or not you like it or not. So I think hey, if y'all don't believe me, hey, take my $5 bet. I'll take your money.
Hey, that's
it would be
odds.
objectively funny. I will say that.
Whenever you see odds like that, you gotta make a bet.
When Prime 4's trailer drops and we hear "Remember Me" again, oh my! I'm gonna pop off harder than when Metroid Dread got announced.
That would be the greatest moment in the history of the show, actually, like bar none. If
Like
if
the
that
end
happened.
of the trailer, like
and
fades
the
to black,
helmet
and then
just
you
like
hear it. Yeah, you hear it at the end, you're like, oh, he's back again.
The screen is just black. Like, remember me. That would be awesome.
Remember me, 2024.
Basically,
Metroid
like,
Prime,
tagline.
Metroid Prime 4 : Remember. That's it.
That'd be good. That'd be bigger than On Your Left in the Avengers Endgame. It really would. Okay, great Samus's Percentages episode, guys. This was a lot of fun. We covered a lot of different topics. So I hope that you guys listening got to sink your teeth into some of these questions, and we'd love to know what your Samus's Percentages are. Of course, let us know over in Discord. Let us know over on Twitter, Blue Sky. We are at Omega Metroid Pod, and you can let us know on Twitter as well. I'm at Spateri316. Dak is at DakCity_, and Doom's at Doominal Cross. Check out OmegaMetroid.com. You can find a lot of good stuff there. You could check out some of the previous Samus's Percentages episodes that we've done, as well as a whole slew of other good stuff over there. So be sure to check that out. And of course, wherever you get your podcasts, like, subscribe, rate, recommend, review. If you got a Metroid fan in your life, let them know about the Omega Metroid podcast. We are doing this every week, new episodes every week, and I thought this was a great one. So yeah, that's going to do it for us, everybody. But until next week, we are out of here. Have a great week, and we'll see you back here. Bye.